Hey, it's Don, the Auction Professor. We're going to talk about another BOLO, and it's something that I do talk about and I do sell quite often. It's vintage magazines. Now, there's a lot of do's and don'ts with magazines, so we're going to go to the screen in just a minute here, and I'm going to explain some of the things not to buy as well what to buy. There's more to magazines than it just being a magazine. Sometimes there's other things in that magazine that make it worth way more than just any typical issue or edition of that magazine. So anyway, we're going to go to the screen right now, and we're going to talk about that right this moment. Okay, so today we're going to talk about magazines. There's not a lot to it. You got to be able to find them first. I don't find the real early magazines. I settle with the in-between and the moderately expensive or $10 plus magazines if they're vintage. Now, they're going to be long tail unless they're first issues or real early editions or a scarce title or like a pre-code, something along this line, like the saucy movie tales here. Looks similar to comic books of the day, too. Usually the earlier, the better on most all of them. Now, there's some newer stuff here that's by famous people that sells as well, too, but the cover art is key as well. Sometimes it'll sell just because of who painted the cover painting. And I love some of the artwork. So I've got books, hard copy actual books of just covers and, like movie posters and vintage posters and things along that line. Just because the artwork's just phenomenal on some of these things for the artistic quality, literally. So anyway, as somebody who paints and uses the same medium, sometimes oils and watercolors and things, I appreciate the work and the design and the layout. So anyway, this one went for $458, and it's not an anomaly. There's tons of books like this that go for a ton of money. Now, some of them are based on topics like this one. It's on the flat Earth. It's a known edition. In some of the price guides and things like that, you will find stuff like this. It's sold for around $10,000, I believe. It was a buy it now, so that was the ending price. I don't think there was a bunch more photos either, which was puzzling. Okay, so anyway, this is just I guess it's the first talk of the flat Earth with the big flat Earth movement coming in, but anyway. Now, this is an Andy Warhol magazine-related item. John Lennon's in them and stuff like that, too. Aspen magazine. And most of the time, I've only seen one issue here, one issue there, just a couple of times. If you're lucky enough to find any of these. There's some other titles, and I've shown some in a few other videos that are just almost impossible to find, but this is one of them. I don't think it went for this high. I think it was like 7,000 or something like that, but either way, it's a pretty good magazine lot to find. Weird Tales. Now, any of these weird ones, this one has Houdini. You can't go wrong with pretty much anything from the day with Houdini. Sheet music or whatever it is, postcard, anything with Houdini on it. This is early. It's a unique one. I don't think I've seen one of these in person, even in the condition it's in. Almost, $2,500 on it. So, and it's 1924. There's a H.P. Lovecraft story in it, too. Now, magazines sometimes can just sell because of stories that are in them, like Ernest Hemingway has some in some national magazines. In the first publication of some of his material, before it was actually a book, was published in like magazines and things like that. Not just like someone like him specifically, but there's many other ones that are like that too. So sometimes it's the story that's in it. The issue, the magazine itself means nothing. Just keep that in mind. We'll just flip through some here. High Times, you should at least know the title because you're going to run into these. First issue, prototype, $2,400. They had 25 shipping on that too, which is crazy. But anyway, probably they are including the insurance and all. I shouldn't have to tell you what this one is. This is first issue, Marilyn Monroe, Playboy magazine. Most expensive magazine, I think, from this whole line. You can sell them in lots, but this is the one everybody snags. I've seen them go for up to $3. I know someone who personally scored one at a garage sale once for just a couple bucks. Person didn't know what he had, and he ended up turning it around for almost $3,000 that same day. Locally even. He didn't even have to go online for it. So anyway. Outdoor Life. I believe this is the very first issue of the one that still continued up until almost modern day. If it's even discontinued, it may even still be a magazine. I don't keep up on new magazines or anything like that these days. It's been a long time since I went into a bookstore. Most items I purchase like that from online, or I take them out from the library. Library, you can reserve anything you want. There's no fees. They'll ship them to your local branch, and boom, you pick them up, and you don't have to pay for them. Why spend the money? I grew up and, going to libraries when I was a kid. You couldn't get videos just anywhere. So, you had to reserve stuff. My parents, never were rich or anything, so they didn't, go out and buy movies or anything like that. So anyway, the library is your friend, so in college we used it extensively. So anyway, rather interesting. $2,000 for this one, 1898 first edition. The bicycling was pretty cool on there, I thought. Let's see, Amazing Stories. This is a classic one. I think it's Steven Spielberg made the Amazing Stories TV series, and there's been a bunch of takeoffs and things about that. This is considered one of the first science fiction pulps of this type. $1,500 basically on it, one bid. H.G. Wells had a story in here, and that's part of the key. The cover artwork's unique. It's Saturn basically in the background. Nice titling. It's a really interesting one. Let's flip through some more. Bitcoin. Modern stuff will sell too if you have the right kinds of magazines. Hard to find these now, now that the fad of Bitcoins is all over the place. $1,400 for 22 issues. Oz. Look this one up. I'm not going to give you too much. We're going to look at it in just another minute or so here. There's some Warhol tie-ins and some oddball comics and things like that. First issue, $1,260 basically from England. Nintendo Power. I buy these whenever I can. I'll bulk them up in a lot, and I'll usually get some good money. This one sold, I think, around $1,000 for this lot. 285 issues. They don't show up very often, and if the posters are there, even better. The posters can sell on their own. Sometimes I get these for free because people think they're nothing. So this is one of those safety nets on these. And there's some other ones here. Usually I can sell a lot of Ranger Rick or something like that too, if it's in good condition, a lot of them, for some really good money. There's other titles too, of course. Vintage Skateboard Magazine, the Beat Street. These are scarce, I would say. I get Thrasher Magazine quite often. Skateboard Magazine once in a blue moon, and the other titles are just so far out there that I just never run into them. So anyway, they're good haul if you can get a bunch of them. $1,100. Again, these are modern. So now here's a Weird Tales lot. Conan on the cover is part of the issue on some of these, and some of the styling and the artwork and things like that. So I love some of the artwork here. It's just like the fantasy style that I like. Soft and oil painting and the whole works. $1,190. Bruce Lee, anything from over there from the time when he was around is worth some money. So $910 for these from Hong Kong, vintage originals. The New Yorker. There's tons of New Yorkers that are worth some money. Fortune magazine from the 30s are worth some good money. These are vintage 20s. $875 for these grouping. It looks like a whole full, it's a whole full year it looks like. Aspen, Andy Warhol, as I said, there's good content in here. Fab Pop Art, they listed similar titles as I would, $850. Feminia, this one's an oddball one, early. Bound edition means it's been bound in a like a hardbound book style. The artwork is key in these, and that's, I think, the artwork it adds is what sells it. Popular. It always sells. If you find any of these, even in bad condition, you'll sell it. Really quickly, too, honestly. Men's Interest. It's like a college kind of thing. $800 for these. Here's another one, Saturday Evening Post. This is a known one because of the Alcoholics Anonymous piece inside of it. It's even on the cover. That's why you can't miss it. A lot of these aren't worth much at all. There's a few issues here and a few issues there. Some that have inserts. Those are the ones that are worth money. Basically, $750 on that. Here's another one. This is Hot Rod Magazine, 1948. First issue. Basically $700. Scanlan's monthly complete year. I think this is all of them, actually, if I'm not mistaken. I've only seen that bottom left one there before, and that was actually it. These show up very infrequently, so you're going to be lucky to even see any of these. But if you do, just because I haven't seen many of them, they may be more common in a certain area of the country. I couldn't tell you. $700. Navy Stories. This is an early one. It's the last issue, but it's early. It's 1930s. The cover artwork's pretty cool. I think it's unique. It's different. $665. Time magazine with Al Capone on the cover. Now, some of the war ones from World War II with like Hitler or something on the cover, those always sell. I know a lot of people may not want to sell that. That's your call. It's a good issue for money-wise. Maybe not for other aspects of it, but most people who would buy it are buying it for the collectability, in my personal opinion. No one really wants an old magazine unless they collect it. It's part of having the entire collection of Time magazine. People actually do that, just like comic books. So just keep that in thought. $650. The Dragon. Now, this is a TSR, which is Dungeons and Dragons. First issue, Volume 1, Number 1. Very scarce. 1976 or 77, if I'm not mistaken. 76, yeah. This is early. A lot of people didn't know they were around back then. People think they started in like 80, 81, 82. But no, they were from 76. I think there was parts of them still producing stuff in like 74 or 75, if I remember right. I could be off on that, but I know they were around real early before I ever originally thought. $609. The original Punk magazine, 1976-79, in hand, $550 for 14 issues. Scarce. You'll be lucky enough to run into those. Puck. There's a bunch of these style of magazines from back in the day. Judge was another one. Puck, 1893. This is a bound edition, so it has many issues, and the illustrations are collected. So, 520. No, this is Interview magazine. This is a newer one. This is Andy Warhol, like Pee Wee Herman and stuff like that. So I mean, it's modern day. 510. You won't find these. I've never seen one in my life. Here's another one, Apparel Arts Book magazine. This is like a designer industrial style of magazine, 1938. 510. Sports Illustrated, number 1, 2, 3, 4, uncirculated, $500. They don't go for a ton back then because the topics and the material at the time, but they are very well worth selling, as you see. Tom Swift actually had a magazine out for a little while. I've shown the books as well and talked about them. Several different series, or 2 series. The father did them and then the son did them too. So 500. I'm pretty sure it was a father and a son that did them. I know there's 2 series. There's a Tom Swift Jr., which came out as well too. So 500. Doc Savage, number 1. Comic book was made of this. The Explorer, the Adventurer. It's a good topic. I think there was even a radio show back in the 30s as well too. But 500 on that one. Terrible condition cover-wise. Harper's Bazaar. Now they go back to the 60s. The better ones have, specific issues. 500. It takes the right person to spend 500 on something like that. So it's going to be a long tail on some of these Harper Bazaar, in my opinion. But some sell right off the bat. Popular Electronics. Now this is talking about the very first mini computer, so that's why this one's popular. Anybody who's into collecting computers wants this specific issue. There it is. But anyway, 500. Liberty, The Adventure of Retired Colorman Sherlock Holmes. Sherlock Holmes story. This is probably an original story, only published like in here, just like I was talking about. So that's the reason some issues of certain magazines sell for a ton of money. But 500 for that. I could go on with these for a long time as well too. Swedish magazine with Marilyn Monroe from 1948. Most people wouldn't know that's who that was. There's some American magazines, I think like Woman's Day or Woman's World or something that has her on it too. And most people miss that one. I've seen one once and was lucky enough, but it's been so long. I'm pretty sure it's Woman's World, if I'm not mistaken, from about the same era. But 500 on that one, basically. Next one, The Strand again, and we've got another Sherlock Holmes story. 600 on that one, 1892. And the last one here is just a Betty Page cover, Satan magazine, believe it or not. It's more like a Playboy-related style of thing with some centerfolds in it and stuff. This one shows up, but this one's pretty scarce. 510, a standard issue on slab and all. You might get $150, maybe 200. Maybe even a little higher than that, depending on the day of week. This one's slabbed and all. It's in pretty decent condition, but that's just literally a touch on them. There's a ton if you want to go down in price that you can still be able to flip, but just be careful. Condition. Don't get any ones that smell funny or have a musky scent or anything along that line. The best you can get for the cheapest amount is what you're looking for. The better titles, sci-fi and stuff. Don't buy like Holmes magazines or woodworking. Those just don't sell. Railroad, Modern Railroad, or Miniature Railroad, or Model Railroad, any of that kind of stuff doesn't sell very well unless they're really, really issues, or you got a bunch of them you can sell in a big lot. So just keep that in mind, but that's what we have for you. Well, there you go. There's some more information on a specific item that we do sell quite often. Some of them can sell for hundreds of dollars. There are some that even sell into the $1,000 range, depending on the specific magazine. But that's what I have for you today. Hopefully that gave you some real good ideas and thoughts and some interesting things to look for. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button down below. You can also hit the bell icon to be notified when we post new content or go live. Subscribe and tell a friend.